Hi, my name is Sieg Pedde. I've been asked to give this presentation to you today because I will be in Europe as you are watching this. I haven't had time to memorize the text of my talk, so I hope you will forgive me for reading it to you. I've done my best to keep this relatively short, but still relevant. I hope that my musings will be of interest to you. I would like to speak to you on the topic yesterday, today, and tomorrow. How the Libertarian Party of Canada came to be, and how we might move towards more significance in the next 44 years. Yes, the Libertarian Party of Canada is 44 years old. I've been a member of the Libertarian Party of Canada from the very beginning, and would like to share some experiences and insights of mine since the beginnings of the libertarian movement in Canada. We all get to where we are today through sometimes circuitous routes. If we have a curious nature and a deep desire to learn, it can be an interesting and at times confounding journey. In grade 7, I remember writing an essay from my social studies class suggesting that the government should provide everyone in the nation with a free home and an income sufficient to live a dignified life. It seemed reasonable to me at the time. I have an excuse for writing such drivel. I was only 12 years old. I didn't know any better. I grew up. But it appears that the average voter in Canada is as naive today as I was at age 12. A system of income and asset redistribution, which is what it takes for everyone to have a guaranteed home and income, can't work. What I didn't realize at age 12 is that in order to guarantee John and Mary a home and an income, you have to tax it away from Tom, Dick, and Harriet first. Today's redistributionists, and that includes everyone in all of the major political parties, and everyone who votes for them, think it's okay to take money from you and give it to your neighbor, or even to someone halfway around the world. The Libertarian Party of Canada is a political party. We operate in a system we had no part in designing, so we have to play by the existing rules to some point. But because we look at the immorality of robbing Peter to pay Paul, we want to keep the tax theft to a minimum. If individuals and families get to keep more of their hard-earned money, they will have more opportunity to save and invest and not look to the government for handouts. But libertarianism is more than just being able to keep more of your money. So why am I a libertarian? I don't have the time available here today to go into family history and experiences that made me a freedom lover from a very young age. I just know that I have always thought myself quite capable of running my own life. I have never felt the need for, nor have seen moral justification for, having political masters. By the time I entered high school in St. Catharines, Ontario, I realized that I was looking for something which could define my evolving personal philosophy of individualism, responsibility, and ethical behavior. In grade 11, I discovered the author Ayn Rand, specifically her novel Atlas Shrugged. The novel chronicles an entirely plausible economic and social collapse of the United States as the movers and shakers, the thinkers and doers, the truly productive individuals of society decide to go on strike. If you can't imagine what happened as a result, read the book. I realized that in Ayn Rand, there was at least one other person in the world who valued individual responsibility. Given that she had a large readership, I figured there had to be more individualists out there somewhere. That gave me hope. In 1967, I moved from St. Catharines to London to attend the University of Western Ontario. Even then, socialism was rampant in academia, and I didn't meet anyone at Western with whom I really felt comfortable discussing laissez-faire capitalism, individual rights, personal responsibility, and all those things that we think of today as a libertarian. I was bored and disenchanted at Western and dropped out in 1968 to start a courier company. I've been an entrepreneur ever since. In 1972, I happened to meet up with an old high school friend who had moved to California. We talked about Ayn Rand, and he told me about an organization in the United States called the Society for Individual Liberty that, like Rand, promoted individual liberty and personal responsibility. When he returned to California, he mailed me some brochures. From the Society for Individual Liberty, I learned about the American Libertarian Party. In 1973, I traveled to Strongsville, near Cleveland, for the second national convention held there by the party. It was there that I first saw a book by Robert A. Heinlein, who has since become my favorite science fiction author. The book is called The Moon is a Harsh Mistress, and it is an excellent pro-liberty novel. It was also there that I met Marshall Bruce Evoy and several other Canadian individualists. We agreed to explore forming a Canadian Libertarian Party when we all got back to Canada. In the second half of 1973, several of us met often in Bruce Evoy's Toronto apartment. We worked on writing a party platform and a statement of principles. We had lots of very earnest discussions and sometimes even arguments, often over the most trivial and silly things. We took our liberty very seriously and wanted to do a good job. Finally, we were ready. In 1974, with Bruce as our driving force, we officially founded the Libertarian Party of Canada on July the 7th, Robert A. Heinlein's birthday. Marshall Bruce Evoy, quite rightly, has long been credited as the founder of the Libertarian Party of Canada, but there were 8 other individuals, me included, who also worked very hard to make the party a reality. Lest the other founders be forgotten, I want to publicly acknowledge them and extend my personal thanks and deep appreciation for their input and hard work in making the Libertarian Party of Canada a reality. In the beginning were Peter Kierma, Detlef Mertens, Bill Westmiller, who wrote the original foreign policy for the party, Stephen Jarvis, who became the second party chairman, Ken Corentire, sometimes known as Ken Freeman, Maria Cheer, Ian Darwin, and Sieg Pedde. That's me. I wrote the first domestic policy for the party and became the first elected leader at our first national convention in 1974. That's how, as newly elected leader of the Libertarian Party of Canada, I came to run as a candidate in the federal election of 1974 in the riding of London East, Ontario. How do I do in the election? Well, I got 71 votes. Could I have done better? Maybe. But I didn't really realize at the time how strongly voters actually believe that they need a powerful government, to the point where virtually everything in their lives is controlled in some way. I was frustrated with the political state of affairs in 1974 and didn't like the way things were heading. My election slogan was 1984 is only 10 years away. Hardly anyone got the reference. If you don't get it, please, please purchase the book 1984 by George Orwell and read it. In many ways, we are living in Orwell's nightmare 1984 right now. In 1974, I thought we still had time to stem the complete loss of our freedoms. I was wrong. Today, in July of 2018, 44 years later, we have no real rights left. Most Canadians have not been concerned as our government has become ever more intrusive. Virtually no one places any value on the rights to privacy, independence, and increasingly property. As party leader in 1974, I did everything I could to tell others about our new party and how we offered the only true alternative to the various other pro-state, big government, Canadian political parties. I wrote speeches, gave interviews, and spread the word to anyone who would listen. Once, I flew to Ottawa to give a speech at the request of local libertarians and spoke in a large, elegant hall that was meant to house hundreds of individuals. Besides the 4 or 5 local libertarians, there was one attendee. One. I gave my speech, and she listened. I have no idea what she thought of the bizarre situation, but I took it in good humor and hope to have a larger audience next time. Where did all of our collective efforts get us? Not as far as we had hoped. It was not due to a lack of effort, a lack of ideas, or a lack of commitment. It was due perhaps to a lack of an understanding of human nature. We did not realize the pathological need of people to feel secure, to be led, even if it's only down the proverbial garden path. We did not realize the extent to which people refuse to take responsibility for themselves. Did we accomplish anything at all? Sure. Libertarian rhetoric has become more mainstream and is sometimes even used by other political parties. But given that our current political climate is by no means libertarian, what does all of this really mean? While having our rhetoric appropriated is flattering, nothing really changes. Are the conservatives really pro-business and free enterprise? Are the liberals really the guardians of social justice and individual rights? I think not. What do you think? No other political party understands that the best way to protect our rights is to understand that they were always ours to begin with. Governments can't grant us the basic rights to life, liberty, property, and the right to keep the fruits of our labor. We are born with these rights, and they are inviolable. Mostly, words spoken and ideas expressed by our political opposition have become to mean the opposite of what is being said. How can that happen? Again, read George Orwell's 1984, then you'll understand. Libertarians believe that the only proper function of government is to protect the rights of the individual to life, liberty, and property. That's it. Any other service can be provided more efficiently by cutting out the government as a middleman. The system we have today is bankrupting and degrading us. It is treating us as serfs and tax slaves. Why do we stand for this? And where is all this going to end? The important question, of course, is whether all the efforts by libertarians and other freedom seekers, then and since, have been wasted. I think not. It has been an uphill battle, yes, but we have to prevail. The fight for our rights is not only for us, but for everyone and generations to come. Certainly, libertarians have never done well at the polls. I never expected to get elected in 1974, and was surprised that anyone at all voted for me. People then had never heard of libertarianism and knew nothing about it. People today still know very little about it. I think our foremost obligation to the electorate is to educate, to show that we are all better off, happier and more productive in a free society, with minimal government involvement. How many of us really understand the effects that thousands of laws and regulations have on each of us individually and on all of us collectively? How do so many individuals who are perfectly capable of running their own lives become so dependent on the state? Why do we think we need the state and an overreaching government in the first place? These are good questions, and I don't claim to know all the answers. Part of the problem is that we aren't considering the unintended consequences of all those laws. Why do we vote for the libertarians? Why do we vote for the politicans? Why do we vote for politicians in the first place? We entrust them to do the right thing on our behalf. We think that our representatives, the supposed experts, will make the best possible decisions for us. Part of the underlying problem is that we don't have enough faith in ourselves as individuals to know what to do. Our politicians know this. So here we are at the Libertarian Party of Canada's National Convention in 2018. Is there hope for us as a political party and a movement for individual liberty and responsibility? Yes, there is hope. The pendulum towards completely irrational and irresponsible government has swung so far that perhaps it doesn't have too much further to swing before it begins to move back towards its mean. I always think of any objective in terms of achieving some sort of critical mass to overcome initial resistance. Once that critical mass is reached, things move ahead, sometimes very quickly. For the Libertarian Party of Canada, the critical mass is knowledge. The electorate has to know that big government is not only bad for the pocketbook, but that it must by its very nature violate your individual rights to life, liberty, and property. The key for any measure of success by us, I think, is not to be like the other political parties. We need to be honest. We need to treat voters like adults. Those voters who can't or won't think will never vote for us anyway. We should appeal to those individuals who think critically and want to behave and live responsibly. They are out there. After all, you are like that, aren't you? There will be more like us if we are consistent, fair, and reasonable, and operate from principle rather than expediency. We do not want to pander to anything that will continue the current trend to reduce everything and everyone to the lowest common denominator. We have a great collection of individuals in our party who are helping us move forward. I would like to thank our current party leader, Tim Moen, and everyone on the party executive for their important but often thankless endeavors. It is sometimes hard to stay motivated when it is so difficult to see any real progress. We need to stay the course. If we all work harder and longer and above all smarter, we will achieve our critical mass and will create a better world for our children and grandchildren. I congratulate everyone here who has the understanding that we are fighting a critical battle and who have the dedication and discipline to help us make a real difference in the world. Finally, I would like to acknowledge all the individuals who were elected as party leaders after my resignation in 1975. I understand that some of them will be here in person today. We owe a debt of thanks to all of them, and I wish I were here to shake their hands. To individual liberty and personal responsibility, and a bright, more libertarian future ahead. Thank you for your attention, and enjoy the rest of the convention.